So, folks, we got to talk about a man named Zohran Mamdani, or as he's also called more correctly, Zohran Mamdani. For some reason, everyone all over the place in the media keeps calling him Mamdami, like Mommy Dami, and it's really weird, and I hate it. But dude is on the verge of winning New York City's mayoralship, and it's pretty cool. And I wanted to kick off this segment before we get into the Fox News bit with one of his most recent speeches. And I think it's just great stuff.
There is something special in this room tonight. Power. It's the power of hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers united to fundamentally reimagine what is possible in New York City. Now, there are some who oppose that vision. Billionaires have poured millions of dollars into this race because they say that we pose an existential threat. And I am here to admit something. They are right. We are an existential threat to billionaires who think their money can buy our democracy. We are an existential threat to a broken status quo that buries the voices of working people beneath corporations. And we are an existential threat to a New York where a hard day's work isn't enough to earn you a good night's rest. And we are absolutely an existential threat to disgraced politicians like Andrew Cuomo, who diminish public trust, harass women, and are unabashed in their desperation to collaborate with Donald Trump and his donors. This is not a moment for capitulation. We are in a period of political darkness. Donald Trump and his ICE agents are snatching our immigrant neighbors from our city in broad daylight, right before our eyes. His authoritarian administration is waging a scorched earth campaign of retribution against any who dared oppose them, against the courts that dare hold them accountable, and against our trans and queer neighbors for simply daring to be themselves. We believe in the wealthiest city, in the wealthiest nation, in the history of the world, that working people deserve a dignified life. We believe that buses should be fast and we believe that housing is far too expensive. We're going to build hundreds of thousands of affordable homes, take on bad landlords, and freeze the... And we believe that daycare shouldn't cost as much as a year's tuition at City College. That's why we're going to deliver universal... These are not just slogans. These are commitments. We say them not simply to inspire, but because it is what we will deliver. Because for all those who say, our time is coming, my friends, our time is now.
Let's fucking go! Oh, God.
In 1957.
In 1957, the effects of nuclear weapons. We're not. I love you, Kyle Hill. We're not talking about you right now. We're talking about Zohran Mamdani. Another time, Kyle Hill, please. But no, like, dudes, he's the real deal. He's the real deal. Okay. I missed the opportunity to say the rent is too damn high. I think he had I think he nailed it. I think he nailed it. But what we're looking at here is essentially the polling indicates that Andrew Cuomo doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell when it comes to this election. You can get all the other candidates to drop out and he still wouldn't have a snowball's chance in hell. And also, like, Curtis Sliwa isn't going to, like, jump out of the race. So, like, Cuomo isn't going to get those conservative votes that he was hoping for. And really, Cuomo's just there at this point to kind of be there and, like, grift whatever he can out of the campaign. But I think that one of the things we have to really take into account here is that he means it. And he is on the verge of being the mayor of New York City, right? And so let's take a look. I wanted to jump into this interview he did with Fox News. This is maybe one of the most incredible things I've seen in a while. I did watch part of it, pre-watch, whatever. I watched some of it. And I gotta say, this is some of the most impressive, like, verbal and ideological and rhetorical jujitsu I've seen in a long time. And that's saying something, because I watch a lot of this stuff, to prep for the show. And this is, he does a phenomenal job. Let's jump in and take a look.
New York, you want to be the mayor of New York City, which, last night I chat GPT'd, where is the capitalist and global finance center of the world? And it said New York City, which made me feel good as someone who loves New York City. Is that a moniker that you're proud of and one that you want to continue for this city?
We should be proud of it, and I will also say that that's one thing you have in common with Andrew Cuomo, because he also uses ChatGPT to answer many questions, including how to actually resolve the housing crisis in this city. And
damn, just like right off the bat, number one, like subtle jab at the interviewer. Number two, like very public jab on Andrew Cuomo. Like, holy moly. Yeah, I asked, instead of doing any research or anything like that, I asked ChatGPT to do it for me. Teehee.
It's time that we are not only proud of us being the financial capital, the cultural capital, but also we should make it a capital of where working people can afford to live in this city. Because right now what we're seeing is that 1 in 4 New Yorkers are being priced out of the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world.
That's absolutely true. One of the things that's also true is that JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs have moved major operations to Texas. They've not abandoned New York, but they're hedging their bets on New York because of the increased taxes that they see coming if you become mayor. So when they do that, jobs move out of the city as well. So how does that help affordability if people in the city don't have the jobs that they once had here?
Well, I'm looking to make this a city that every person chooses, whether they're a business leader or they're someone who works for that business. And the key ways of doing that are actually delivering quality of life, public safety, and affordability for each and every person. Because what we're seeing right now is we have a broken status quo. We have a corrupt political system. And we have the politicians that sustain that. That's really what's on the ballot, is whether New Yorkers want to continue that or whether they actually want a city they can afford. That's what I'm going to deliver.
So,
I also, just the way he continually redirects to, his campaign is really well done. Really, it takes skill to do that, right? Number one. But number two, he rephrases certain talking points in a way that is going to resonate with a Fox News viewer, which is that, we're ultimately, those companies are going to do what they're going to do, but we're going to work on making this city a place that people want to choose to live in. And they want to choose to live here, and they want to choose to work here, and they want to choose to do business here. And ultimately, if that's not going to change if 1 or 2 businesses take move to Texas. New York City is New York City. Wall Street ain't going anywhere.
Governor Hochul, you would have to get approval from the legislature to raise individual taxes, income taxes, and also corporate taxes in New York, which you've said you would like to do in order to pay for the free buses and the free childcare and the different programs, the government grocery stores and the like. She says no new taxes in her governor's race. So what are you going to do if she won't allow taxes to be raised? How will you pay for these programs?
I've said time and again that I believe these are the most straightforward ways that we can actually fund universal childcare, making buses fast and free. Mm-hmm. And I've said that the 2 clear ways to do so, raising personal income taxes on the top 1% by 2%, and raising the corporate tax to match that of New Jersey's corporate tax of 11.5%. Now, if there are other ways to raise this money to fund this agenda, the most important thing is that we fund the agenda. I still think that these are the most important and clear ways we can do it. And I'm thankful to have Governor Hochul's support in this race, and the fact that she said we have a shared commitment to delivering universal childcare for New Yorkers across the city and the state.
I think that's great.
I like, even the way he puts it, like, yeah, it's going to be a 2% increase, and we're just asking people to pay the same amount of money that they would pay in New Jersey. Like, those are both such good talking points. Those are both such good talking points for, like, essentially a Fox News audience that is essentially trying, primed to take the talk about, like, taxation in a way that is immensely negative. Instead, they hear that and they're like, wait a minute, 2% for the wealthiest people who aren't me? Well, that doesn't sound too bad at all. And also, wait a minute, they just want the same, like, corporate business taxes as New Jersey pays? Wait a minute, if New Jersey can do it, surely New York City can do it too. Like, that's crazy. Like, it makes it sound so much more mundane and so much more achievable when he puts it into these terms.
Right. I think everybody would love to have free healthcare and free buses and all these things. But the question is, how do you pay for it? The city's already in debt. The governor says no to new taxes. Like Margaret Thatcher said, socialism's great until you run out of everyone else's money, other people's money.
Well, what Andrew Cuomo said is that if he had $959 million, he'd give it to Elon Musk in tax credits, because that's exactly what he did. And I bring that up to you to say that it's often a question of whether you have the willingness to spend that money to benefit working class people, not where that money is in the first place.
So what would you cut? What would you draw from to do it?
I don't think we have to cut. I've spoken about raising taxes on the wealthiest. And frankly, this is an issue that we have here in New York City, and frankly, even across this country. When I've spoken to Trump voters right here in New York City, Hillside Avenue in Queens, Fordham Road in the Bronx, they've told me it was cost of living that drove them to vote for Donald Trump. They've told me it was a promise of a lower actual, whether it be cheaper groceries, whether it be childcare, whether it be rent. Right. And what we're seeing time and time again.
Why quote Thatcher? Well, because it's Fox News.
Is we're more focused on the question of billionaires and the most profitable corporations than we are on people who can't even afford to make ends meet in this city.
Well, we know affordability.
Like, he's just so fucking good at this. I'm not in the business of trashing other lefty streamers, but I have seen some saying he isn't good enough on some messaging. And I got to say, if you're going to purity test this guy out of potential office, you're never going to get anyone good enough for you to run for anything ever. I mean, yeah, this guy is basically about as good as you, about as close to like peak progressive socialist politician as you're going to get. Like, this is this is like the standard. This is like the gold standard of lefty, like effective lefty politicians. Like, I don't know. Like, if you want to become the pure candidate, by all means, become that candidate. But like, otherwise, like, shut the fuck up and do the best you can with what you got. Like, there's no use sitting on a desert island, like stranded with no food and being like, I'm not going to eat this fish because I'd really like pizza. You use what you got in order to survive and move forward to a better future. How are you going to pay for it? How are you going to do that?
Is an issue. And I think that all politicians are getting to an understanding of that. And I think that you've done a lot, actually, to bring people's attention to that issue.
Also, keep in mind, like, this is Fox News. And there is definitely some elements of this where they're trying to like get him and they're trying to make him look bad. But understand, like, Fox is aware of where the polling is. I wanted to share this with you guys. And this is a poll from Fox that dropped earlier today, right? Zohran Mamdani has broken 52% of support in New York City's mayoral race. Do you guys have any idea how insane that is? Do you guys have any idea how insane it is? He has over 50% support in New York City. That's wild. That's like almost unheard of. And like Andrew Cuomo's polling at like 28%. That he's 24 points over Andrew Cuomo, right? So Fox News is aware of this. Fox News is aware of this. They understand how well he's doing. And this interview is, to kind of put it bluntly, this is them interviewing someone they know is going to be the next mayor. And so while this is a hostile interview, it's not nearly as hostile as if they thought they could actually smear him and like tank his campaign, right? So you're going to see some elements of this where they're like, ooh, woo, you have done a lot to like push affordability as a talking point. Ooh, woo. You know, like there's some elements here where they are trying to extend an olive branch so he's willing to come back, right? So it's a balanced interview. I wouldn't say that. I would say it's still very much a hostile interview, but there are going to be things that, you know, you might not usually expect to see in a hostile interview here.
Take a look at the free buses issue just for a moment, because I know you said that the pilot project that you...
Like now it's less going to be about smearing him and it's going to be more about trying to smear his policies. Does that make sense? Like there's a shift that has happened here, because like they're sitting across, they have one of their reporters sitting across the table from like a Muslim socialist, and like they aren't touching those aspects really. It's more about the policies now, and that's because they know he's going to be mayor.
Did was one of the biggest accomplishments of being an assemblyman. The Washington Post said this in an editorial about this. Quality inevitably declines when a service is offered for free. Vagrants and drug addicts would camp out all day on New York's buses, especially in the winter. Parents would go afraid to let their children ride alone. Wealthier residents would find another way to get around, but poor New Yorkers who depend on the bus would suffer the most.
You know, it's crazy. It is insane to me to quote this as if it's like an authoritative source. They're like, oh, well, the Washington Post published this. And yeah, the opinion section published this. This is just some guy writing about what they think might happen, about what they're worried about happening if buses are free. And it's just like, okay, why do we give that any credence? Why don't we look at what actually happens when we make you know, the New York City buses free? Because we actually have test cases of doing just that. And also, like, I'm sorry, if you're rich and wealthy enough or like powerful enough to get an opinion piece in the Washington Post, you ain't riding the bus, motherfucker. Like you aren't riding like the New York City bus. What is your concern here? Get the fuck out.
What do you say to that? Do you agree with that?
Well, I would say that they should actually look at the report of the 5 free buses we delivered across New York City. We didn't see an increase in homelessness. We did see an increase in New Yorkers riding the bus. We did see a decrease in assaults on bus drivers by 38.9%. And we also saw a decrease in...
Because, by the way, who forces people to pay to use the bus? It's the bus driver. And so if the bus is just free for anyone to use, there's literally no reason to assault the bus driver. There's no enforcement mechanism incumbent upon the bus driver to deny people rides on the bus or for them to try and enforce fares. And like, it literally makes it safer for the bus driver. It makes it safer for the other passengers. More people are using the bus. So again, there are more bystanders around to interfere if somebody is up to no good. Like, it's just an unambiguously good thing to have buses in wider use.
New Yorkers who are having to take a cab or take their own car, they were actually getting on the bus. More than 10% of new riders were doing so. That's why we care so deeply about this, because of the fact that it can actually deliver economic, public safety, and even congestion relief to New Yorkers who are looking to take these buses.
I know that you're turning 34 on Saturday, and I want to talk about your qualifications. Hell
yeah, Vox Syndicate. I didn't know you were a bus driver, but as a bus driver, I would love to see free rides. Excellent.
Say you have never run a business in your life. So I'm curious, and President Trump said that you never worked a day in your life. You've worked as an assemblyman and you've had other positions in the government. But what qualifies you from your life experience to run the largest city in the country?
You know, I want to take this moment because you spoke about President Trump.
What qualifies you to run one of the world's largest cities? And it's like, what qualifies... What qualifies Andrew Cuomo to do anything in his life? Dude was just born to a political figure. That was his lone qualification, and he had an entire political career. What qualifies Donald Trump to be president of an entire country? Literally nothing. Dude's legacy is like failed steak companies and airlines and like failed business venture on top of failed business venture and like one hit reality TV show. What qualifies him to be president of the United States? Literally not a single goddamn thing. And yet he's their poster boy for like a great politician over on Fox News. So like, I don't know, asking Zohran Mamdani, oh, what qualifies you when like his entire like life has been dedicated to like public service is insane.
And he may be watching right now, and I just want to speak directly to the president, which is that I will not be a mayor like Mayor Adams who will call you to figure out how to stay out of jail. I won't be a disgraced governor like...
Also, can we just like take a moment to be like, he was asked what qualifies him to be mayor of New York City, and instead he's like, I'm going to talk to President Trump now, and just looks directly into the camera to tell Trump he's not going to be a pushover, which is an excellent way to answer that question, right? This is perfect. Instead of engaging with kind of the bullshit framing of the question, just like straight up demonstrating, this is what qualifies me. And what qualifies me is that I'm not a bitch. You know, like that's a pretty good answer. That's a pretty good answer in politics.
Andrew Cuomo, who will call you to ask how to win this election. I can do those things on my own. I will, however, be a mayor who's ready to speak at any time to lower the cost of living. That's the way that I'm going to lead this city. That's the partnership I want to build, not only with Washington, D.C., but anyone across this country. I think it's important because too often the focus on the needs of working class Americans, working class New Yorkers are put to the side as we talk more and more about the very kinds of corrupt politicians like Andrew Cuomo that delivered us into this kind of crisis.
So the question I asked you was what specifically in your background gives you the confidence that you can run a $115 billion budget and run this city specifically from your personal experience and your background?
I've been a state assembly member here in New York City. I've represented 130,000 people in Queens. And in the time that I've done so, I've not only delivered more than $100 million in increased bus and subway service, I've also secured $500 million in debt relief for working class taxi drivers. President Trump knows this. New Yorkers know this across the 5 boroughs. Taxis, as we're looking at them right here, are such a part of what we love about this city. And yet those same drivers were sold a lie about a ticket to the middle class if they bought a medallion. I stood with those drivers. I organized with those drivers. I went on a 15-day hunger strike with those drivers. And we secured $500 million in debt relief that allows those drivers to do more than just think about struggle.
How
That's
many
wonderful.
employees would you be overseeing in the New York City government?
More than 300,000.
That's a lot of people.
Just you know, notice she asks kind of like it seems almost like a throwaway question, but he already he has the answer to it. You know, he came into this interview very much prepared for whatever they could throw at him, and it shows. And like that competence and that show of strength is going to it does him a lot of favors, especially to this type of hostile audience. And it's just really impressive.
Thank you for answering the question. I know that you want to stimulate small business in the city, and we all walk around the city that we love, and we see a lot of empty storefronts. So give me your plan on how you would do that.
You know, I've spoken to a lot of New Yorkers for whom their aspiration, their dream is in that small business. And I've told them that we are going to make it easier to not only open it, but keep it open. We're going to cut fines and fees by 50%, because as you said, we have a city government that has a $116 billion budget. It's not funded by charging a restaurant $25 a year for the right to sell a frozen dessert. We're going to streamline the regulations and rules that these small businesses have to adhere to. Because today, if you want to open up a barbershop, you have to fill out 24 forms, go to 7 agencies, 12 in-person activities. And furthermore, we're going to have a mom and pop czar, someone that'll help these businesses navigate through this. Because while we are holding these kinds of businesses to these kinds of rules, we're letting the most profitable corporations walk all over us here in New York City. And it's part of the problem where so many New Yorkers look around at the wealthiest city in the wealthiest country in the history of the world and asking themselves, there's all this money, why can't I afford $2.90 to even ride the bus?
So let me just quick question on that, and I want to get to public safety because it's obviously another big issue for New Yorkers. So a lot of individuals in this city pay more than 50% of their income in taxes. When you talk about a fair share, how much more than what is the fair share? What's the number?
I've said that we should increase personal income
So
taxes by 2%.
Is fair.
And my point is this:
Give up more than half of your income. That's
if you're making $1 million in New York City or more than that, you can afford to pay 2% more. And the reasons,
Yeah, like I'm sorry, no one listens to this and is like 2% more. That's gonna break the bank. Think of those poor millionaires. If they had to pay 2% more, oh my goodness, oh my goodness. You're a millionaire. You have to pay $2,000 extra. Oh no. Oh no, you won't be able to afford the tissues you need because you're going to be crying so much. Like that doesn't, I'm sorry. No one thinks that. No one is going to move because they have to pay $2,000 more. Like, and that's not even touching the fact that that's not how like marginal tax rates work, but like whatever. Yeah, I have to pay 2% more on every dollar over $1 million. No, I'll have to pay 2 cents out of every dollar I make after $1 million. That's not fair. Like, that's insane. You aren't willing to give up 2 cents out of every dollar you make after $1 million? That's insane. Also, thank you for the $5 Canadian. Appreciate it, worshiper.
You can afford to do so, is because that money will be used to better your quality of life as well.
Yeah.
Because when I speak to the wealthiest New Yorkers,
Yes.
I hear
Yes.
concerns about the cleanliness of the city, the quality of life in the city, questions of public safety. This money is the money that will be used to deliver on those things so that we can ensure that we have a return on investment for all of the money that we are raising and spending right here across the 5 boroughs.
Well, and this is the important thing, right? Because you want a nice city. You want a clean city. You want a city where people like are able to walk down the street at night in safety. You want a city where people aren't like posting up and doing drugs on the street. You want a city where people aren't like, forced out onto into like tent encampments. In order to like survive the night, you want a city where all of that functions, and that doesn't happen. You have to pay for it. Like that's the thing. Like a lot of rich people don't get is that your tax dollars actually do go to making the city function and making things work in the city. Like if like. It is something where you're not willing to pay for that, you're not going to get it. It takes money to house the homeless. It takes money to like address crime. It takes money to, make sure people can like get to and from places safely. But it is also the least effective use of money. And this is just setting aside the humanitarian concerns, right? The basic human decency concerns. It takes money to incarcerate people. So if you're using, for example, the prison industrial complex as essentially a stand-in for mental health treatment, what you're essentially doing is massively ballooning the amount of money it takes in order to get people treatment, when really all you had to do in the first place was have like a social worker to connect people with social services that are properly funded, right? Like if you want people to have mental health treatment, you have to fund the mental health services. If you want people to have, not be on the street and desperate, then you got to fund the housing. If you want people to be like safe, you got to address those underlying issues, because that's what drives crime. It's what drives people to doing desperate things to stay alive or to stay afloat. Like that's what's required. And a lot of rich people are like, no, I would rather die than pay 2 cents out of every dollar I make over $1 million. And that's just insane. Like, oh, you're a rich millionaire with a small business with employees. Well, guess what your employees need? Your employees need places to stay. Your employees need affordable food. Your employees need to be able to get to work cheaply and effectively. And guess what? Paying 2 cents out of every dollar you make over $1 million can help make that happen. It's a necessary expense. And like, a lot of rich people just don't understand that the systems that helped them get rich need to be funded. and like you want your workers to come to work safely and effectively and happily, then you gotta pay for that shit, bucko. And like the idea like, oh, these people will just move. No, they won't. No, they won't. If you're actually a rich person, you don't move out of New York City. Like, I'm sorry. Like, people claim, like, oh, yeah, a bunch of people move. It's like, no, a normal amount of rich people moved out of New York City in any of these given years, right? New York, like, rich New Yorkers aren't concerned about a 2% marginal tax increase on their wealth. They're just not. But they don't want to pay that. And more than that, like, the true cost to having these austerity policies pushed by Republicans is that workers move out of the city. Workers disproportionately move out of New York City, not because of the taxes, but because the cost of living there is becoming unaffordable for anyone but the wealthy. And when workers start moving out of the city, then suddenly the services rich people can access dry up. By taxing the wealthiest people who live in New York City, you are saving the working class of the city. You are retaining them. And at a certain point, you have to ask, are you worried more about flattering the interests of the wealthy, or are you worried more about having a functional city? Because every city relies on the working class.
Oh, Zohran, butter them up with those 2% marginal tax rates.
I don't know how to respond to that. Sake Tanuki, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs. Very much appreciated. Whoa!
I want to talk to you about public safety.
Butter them up with those 2% marginal tax rates.
I don't know why there's a delay between the two different screens, but you know, whatever, it's fine. We got the message twice.
And your relationship with police. So just in terms of public safety, I want to go to an example first, because I hear from people that they don't feel safe walking home at night. There's drug addicts on the street, you know, right around the corner here.
Then you gotta fund mental health programs. You gotta fund rehab programs, and instead of just like handing off like rehab work to private companies that are just there to suckle off the government teat, you gotta actually like invest in science-driven rehab and like the solution, like the underlying solutions to their problems. Like, why did they start using drugs? Was it because they were homeless? Was it because of other factors in their lives? You got to address those factors. And then all the other factors become easier to address.
Walk around the corner and see people shooting up. A lot of garbage on the streets right now. The subway. Oh,
you want garbage picked up off the street? Guess what? You got to pay someone to do that. Like that type. Oh, like you can just institute like, oh yeah, a 0.5% marginal tax rate on everyone who makes over $1 million.
Is something,
and that's gonna like get the streets clean. You know, like genuinely, that would actually generate enough wealth to make the streets of New York City clean. That's crazy, but true. You got to pay for it.
That people are really concerned about. Last week, 64-year-old Nicola Tanzi, who was a church leader, a pillar in his community, was brutally beaten to death. I tried to watch this video in preparation. It's very hard to watch. In a subway station in Brooklyn. 25-year-old David Mazarregos had a 20-inch sword. He's the suspect in this case. He was out. They lowered his bail so that he could get out. He was already waiting a trial for attacking someone in Chelsea. 33 past arrests. You were in favor of bail reform. Does that make you want to change your mind or think twice about reversing that?
Okay, just real quick, because a lot of people just seem to think that like cashless bail programs mean that you can just do a crime and like then there's nothing the judge can do. Cashless bail just means that the judge makes a determination about whether or not you are a threat to public safety.
The biggest factor with grocery prices is cost and preparation. It's one of the reasons why this stream is sponsored by Factor.
No, but I will tell you that Factor has offered me a lot of money to do sponsorships, but I'm not sure. I don't think their food is very good, so I haven't accepted it. But thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs, Sake Tanuki. Also, just want to say, like, bail reform, the judge determines whether or not you're a threat to the community. And if you're not considered a threat to the community, then they release you, because the number one thing is, like, you need to present some kind of persistent threat. And maybe in this case, the judge made a mistake, but that's always the case. And it's better to let someone go free than it is to just keep them incarcerated for no reason. Like, if the bail money, this person posting bail and getting out would still have done the same crime. Like, does that make sense? Like, if you're just putting arbitrary amounts of money on it to, like, prevent them from getting out, then just say, instead of just saying, oh yeah, you have to pay $1 million to get out of prison, just say no. Like, just say no, we're going to hold you until your trial. That's what it seems like, right? Like, you need to demonstrate that a person is a threat to the community. And if you can, then they should be held until trial. And if you can't, then they shouldn't be held for bullshit money reasons. Obviously, they took the money they saved to buy the sword. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, right. But no, like, the real issue here, if somebody's hacking someone to death up with a sword, clearly there's, like, a mental health issue going on. And the solution there is that, like, this person should be getting mental health help. This person should be connected with mental health services. This person should be, like, getting medication that they need. And the issue is that medication costs money in the United States. Going to therapy costs money in the United States. Like, there are financial barriers to getting the help that he would need.
If it's good enough for advice at the FBI, it's good enough for the justice system. No, cash, bail.
Why haven't I been making more cash puns on my part? And I should do better by all of you. I apologize. And you can take that to the bank and cash it. Nailed it. Let's go.
This is a horrific incident, and it's the same video that I saw. And it's one that horrifies New Yorkers across the 5 boroughs, and it's completely unacceptable. And what it makes me think about is the necessity of providing public safety in our New York City subway system and across the 5 boroughs. Yeah. And also, how do we end the revolving door? Because when you look further into the case of whether this individual or so many individuals, especially those suffering from mental health issues, what we find is so often the only mental health system that we have that's functioning in the city is Rikers Island. 40% of the incarcerated population there are suffering from serious mental illness. Why was he on the street is the question.
She talks over him there, but, like, 40% of the incarcerated individuals on Rikers Island are suffering from major mental health issues. And part of the reason this is a big deal is because if you address the mental health issues, you can prevent a lot of them from going to prison in the first place. Because the reason they go to prison is because they have mental health breakdowns. They make decisions they wouldn't usually if they were in of sound mind. And, like, she talks over him there, but that's, like, so important because it costs tens of thousands of dollars every year. I think it's something like $40 or $50, maybe even $60,000 per year to incarcerate one person. $60,000 per person in incarceration on average. And, like, even setting aside, like, the human costs and, like, the moral costs to society of, like, keeping people imprisoned like animals. The money side of this should move you. Like, it costs so much more money to incarcerate and torture these people rather than just getting them the initial intervention and health services that they needed. These are the things that we can do to proactively improve society before there is a material failure. And, like, that's really, really, really important to recognize.
Why was he on the street?
Because we have a broken system.
They lowered his bail. He had a bail he couldn't pay. Then they lowered the bail, and then he could pay it. Imagine if you're this.
Oh, so it's not even a cashless bail system. They're just mad at a judge who lowered someone's bail cost? That's insane.
I wonder if you get connected to the FBI if you call 877 cash now.
Oh, maybe so, Andrew S. Maybe so. Thank you for the $5 dono.
Family. I mean, and they look at 33 prior arrests and
God.
Why? Why was this man on the street? What would stop him in your administration from being on the street?
Because what we would do is actually address the systemic problems that would ensure that someone who goes through the system this many times is actually, his issues are addressed, the services are provided. Right now, all we have is going in and out, especially when it comes to mental health. I'll give you an example.
Where would he be?
True. That is a great point, right? If we truly as a society believe in the concept of innocent until proven guilty, then imprisoning someone prior to their their conviction is pretty monstrous. And you need to demonstrate a good reason to hold someone until their trial. Seems pretty straightforward, yes?
In your world. Where would he be? In a mental institution?
He would actually be getting services from the first time that he was arrested, as opposed to having to go through them 33 times. If you look at the New York Times, they did an investigation on 1,000 different incidents of violent crime in the city tied to mental health episodes. Yeah. They found that so many of those same New Yorkers were failed by the interactions they had with the city when they went for help, for mental health assistance. And that failure is a blight, it is a stain on our city, and it's a failure that I'm looking to fix by actually transforming this with the only comprehensive plan for public safety of any of the candidates. Because what we are going to do is put out a plan and a proposal that we have shared with New Yorkers to create a Department of Community Safety that would bring together all of these pre-existing silos that address mental health crisis, that address homelessness into one department, provide it with the funding necessary, and actually address this crisis.
Where do these people go, though?
I love that. Like, he just absolutely kills it to such a degree that she's like, well, I agree with that. And then he goes on to be like, well, yeah, and we're also going to address X, Y, and Z. I'm the only person with a plan to do any of that. And she's like, well, what about, where would these people go, though? If we didn't put them in prison, where would they go?
My question, are you going to put them in a mental institution so they can be taken care of? Or are you...
Again, like, the only concept conservatives can seemingly come up with is, well, obviously someone who has mental health problems needs to be put in a prison of some kind. And that's insane. There's a good, I do encourage folks, by the way, to go check out the segment that I did on Zohran Mamdani's it's oh god, what was it called? He has a campaign series where he goes over different historical figures from New York City in different locations and talks about them. And one of them is about Nellie Bly, who did a bunch of reporting on the inside of mental asylums, right? And was instrumental in getting essentially some of the first mental health reforms in the United States. And so it's pretty bizarre to just be like, what if we just put them in a different kind of prison, though? Have you considered that? Until it's done. Thank you, Nathan Nielsen.
You're going to leave them at home on medication? What's the plan?
There's a plan right now that allows for involuntary confinement, which I think should be a last resort. Yeah. Because
where would they go? Is she 14? I don't remember who said it, but someone on Blue Sky was talking about how we currently live in the age of course, you're 12. As a concept where a lot of our major political figures just say random bullshit. And it's like, why would you say that? Oh, of course, you're 12. The concepts that are being thrown around now are what a 12-year-old would think is cool or what a 12-year-old might think is effective.
The fact that when you look at the actual results, this is something that so often doesn't actually have what has been spoken about. But what we have today that actually works for New Yorkers with serious mental illness, there are things like Fountain House. This is a clubhouse model, peer-led rehabilitative treatment for New Yorkers with serious mental illness. It costs $4,000 to have someone in Fountain House for a year. That's the cost of being on Rikers for 3 days. And what we see, however, is that those services...
Can we just recognize she literally jaw drops here. You can...
They increase employment by 50%. They reduce hospitalization by up to 45%. Services, they increase...
you can actually see the moment here.
For 3 days. And what we see, however, is that those services, they increase employment by 50%. They reduce hospitalization by up to 45%. and they actually reduce the cost of healthcare as well for those same New Yorkers. This is
4,000 versus 60,000. And it's like, okay, well, my plan is more humane and doesn't involve roping people into cages and also costs like 1%, less than 1% of what your solution costs.
what we're looking at. This is why we say that Rikers is broken, the system is broken.
You can just see people who are suffering up and down 8th Avenue, just as one example. And I hope we'll have a chance to talk more about that next time. But I don't want you to leave without me asking you about your relationship with the police, because obviously this is a big issue. You said in the past, I almost don't need to go through it, it's been said many times, but that you called the police force racist.
Exactly, Archangel. The era of I'm 14 and this is deep.
Conservatism rots people's brains so hard it undermines their critical thinking skills to the point they have trouble comprehending hypothetical. We need to help these people.
It's true. Well, part of it is also just there's an unwillingness here, and I don't think like conservatives are dumb. There's an unwillingness to engage with the hypothetical because they know that the hypothetical will disprove their point. And they're like, people on Fox News especially are paid to have a certain political bent. You know, you don't make it to be a host of a Fox News show without understanding how your bread is buttered. Good night, Ashley. Get good sleep. And thank you for helping to invent the internet.
Said they were a major threat to public safety, called them wicked and corrupt. And now the report that you apologized to 24 members of the NYPD. What did you say to them?
I apologized for the language that I used, and I spoke to them about the fact that I want to work with them to deliver public safety. Because what we're seeing in the city right now is we're asking officers to do nearly everything we can think of. We used to ask officers to focus on serious crimes. Now we're asking them to focus also on the mental health crisis, to focus also on homelessness.
No, we want the expensive, inefficient treatment when we have a solution.
Well, we could. I can't help but notice that you've broken your leg. Have you considered if we welded it together with gold? Wouldn't you like a golden leg? We could do that, you know. You know, there's a technique in Japanese pottery that involves breaking it and then filling the gaps with gold, thereby making it anew in a more fanciful form. What if we did that to your broken leg? Sure, it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars more, but you would have pain for the rest of your life, and it wouldn't function properly. And gold is famously known to be very malleable and not very effective at supporting various structures. But it would be very cool, though. You would never stand for a surgeon who like suggests that to you. You shouldn't stand for like policymakers who try and convince you that you need a $60,000 solution when a $4,000 solution would do. This is a good bit. I'm glad you enjoyed me stumbling over myself.
In 1 year alone, the NYPD receives 200,000 mental health calls. In 1 year.
Yeah, and you know what they told me? That 1 out of 3 of those, the person they're very, very dangerous interactions. You're going to send a social worker in there?
Well, part of it is making it so that people can call a special number or get redirected with a 911 call to, you know, people who understand how to deal with mental health crises. And like you can say like, well, right now it's 1 in every 3 calls is for like a very dangerous situation. But part of the reason that is because people are reticent to call cops, because they know if they call cops on someone who's having a mental health crisis, there's a non-0% chance that the cops are going to kill that person or like incarcerate that person. And like, that seems kind of like not a solution that many people want for loved ones who are, you know, having mental health breakdowns. So I'm just saying maybe people would be more willing to call for some kind of intervention if armed cops aren't showing up to kill their loved one.
For pennies on the dollar, our own hype brings us down. Sometimes we should always continue to improve.
It's true. Self-improvement is very, very important, both on a personal level and when it comes to politics and policies. Thank you for the $5, Nathan Nielsen.
You can always have a police officer actually come to address that. But look, you're saying 1 out of 3. 2 out of 3 times, if you don't need the police and you're sending them to do that, then why aren't you sending them to respond to shootings and murders? 5-6 years ago, the response time for officers was closer to 10 minutes. Now it's closer to 16 minutes. New Yorkers deserve a police department that is asked to do the things that it can possibly do, not one that covers the failures of every break in the social safety net.
And I gotta say, you know, I remember several years ago when people talking about like defund the police, you know, in the George Floyd protests and stuff. One of the big criticisms was like, oh, well, defund the police isn't a very good like policy position or slogan because you know, people think they'll be less safe. And it's like, yeah, but like the people who are chanting defund the police aren't, you know, politicians. As a political figure, it's your job to try and figure out a way to make that happen in a popular and sensible way, right? And Zohran Mamdani's figured it out. Like, the solution here is, in fact, just acknowledging that cops shouldn't be tasked with responding to mental health calls. There are a wide variety of things cops should not be asked to do. They shouldn't be asked to play social worker. They shouldn't be asked to, like, be the people helping, you know, the homeless youth on the streets. Yeah, they have very specific jobs, and their jobs are to respond to crime, right? And to stop crime that is ongoing. And one of the ways you can take jobs off the table, or not jobs off the table, but like one of the ways you can like reduce the workload, that's what I was going for, on cops, so that they just focus on what they're supposed to actually do, which is solve crimes and prevent crimes. Is by saying, okay, cops, you aren't handling mental health care calls anymore. Okay, cops, you aren't like going to be this person's social worker because that's a social worker's job.
We can't choke out suspects anymore. He must support defund the police.
I mean, I guarantee you there is some degree of that kind of sentiment among the NYPD. Like that there's like a probably, you know, 40% of the NYPD who feel that way. Saki Tanuki, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. And let's go.
Police officers that I spoke to, they don't want a behind closed doors apology. They want a broad public apology for the things that you suggested about them. Will you do that right now?
Absolutely. I'll apologize to police officers right here, because this is the apology that I've been sharing with many rank and file officers. And I apologize because of the fact that I'm looking to work with these officers, and I know that these officers, these men and women who serve in the NYPD, they put their lives on the line every single day. And I will be a mayor that
What changed your mind about it?
You know,
also, when I said earlier that this is an interview with him, not as a candidate, but as a mayor, right? They're like, oh, well, would you apologize to them? And he goes, absolutely. He's apologizing because he's going to be the mayor of the city. He's going to be working with these organizations, and he needs them at least willing to like hear him out. And so I think that this is actually like, it might come across as too pragmatic for some folks, but like, understand he's essentially already won this race, and he is, you know, trying to create an environment where these people are willing to work with him, right? Online leftists enraged that he didn't start singing NWA's F the Police after getting that question. I mean, honestly, yeah. Like, but the issue is he needs these people to come to the table and work with him on establishing these internal systems, because in order to reform the NYPD, or in order to, like, in another sense, defund the police, you need to change how that system functions. And you can't do that if they're not willing to, like, come to the table. Sorry, all not 5 crooked NYPD officers. Yeah, exactly. And also there is a difference between what you can say as an elected official and what you can say as a citizen, or even as like a potential, as like a candidate, you know? What is going to be useful for you to articulate is going to change based on your position relative to politics, you know? And like, it doesn't really do you guys any good if I just come on stream and I say defund the police, but I don't elaborate on that, right? And it doesn't really do him any good as mayor of New York City if he's just saying defund the police and fuck the cops and like we don't even need them to come to the table. You know, his rhetoric matters when it comes to getting things done as a leader versus how it mattered when he was just like a state assemblyman. There's a difference, or even as a candidate for state assembly.
So I moved to the city when I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
I grew up here. And two of the things that I thought often about was safety and justice. And growing up here, learning about the case of the exonerated five, learning about Sean Bell, learning about Eric Garner, learning about Michael Brown. And then in 2020, the year where all of these tweets are referring to, it was the year when George Floyd was killed. And it felt like safety and justice had never been further apart. And it was actually Eric Adams in 2021 who said that New Yorkers need not choose between these two things.
Mm-hmm. I do wonder about the whole, they put their lives on the line everyday line. They don't even break top 10 most dangerous professions. Sometimes dangerous.
It's true. Like, I think ideally, like, the concept of cops is that they would be the ones putting their lives on the line. But in reality, like, basically all of their training is don't do that, you know? Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs, Sake. Very much appreciated.
And so one of my focuses was, how do we deliver that justice? And now what I know, having represented 100,000 people in Western Queens, is that to deliver that justice, you have to also deliver that safety. And that means representing the men and women in the NYPD. It means representing the black and brown New Yorkers who've been victims of police brutality. It means representing the Muslim New Yorkers in my district who were surveilled on the basis of their faith.
68% of independent voters
Never
want
sell
more.
short the importance of self-care. I just got back from a dying fetus show.
I don't know what that means, but thank you for the $6.66 super chat, Jew Pitter Quake. I have a hard time saying your username. Should I say it quicker? Because I feel the need, like, Jupe Pitterquick. Or do you like the fact that I like have a space between the first and last part of your username? I have so many questions. Dying Fetus is a grindcore band? Well, I understand it's Jupiter Quake, but I'm wondering, Jack wanted to say poop. I did want to say poop because I'm 5. No, I understand that the name is Jupiter Quake. I understand that, but like there's two, the first name Jupe, last name Pitterquake, and it's hard to enunciate both of those. You guys giving me a hard time.
Or police officers on the street. And Cuomo tomorrow night in that debate, he's going to say, I'm going to bring 5,000 more police officers to the street. Will you match that and agree with him on that?
I don't look to Andrew Cuomo for leadership. And
well, will you put
Damn, good job. That's a great answer.
5,000 more cops on the street?
I've been very clear. I want to keep the number.
Republicans talk a lot about law and order, and it's very good slogan. I've put a lot of thought into it, and I think our counter should be truth and justice.
Honestly, like, I feel like we don't need to counter it because, like Republicans talk a lot about law and order. Not a single goddamn one of their elected officials believes in law and order. You know, they've turned law and order into like a dog whistle, phrase, and it's just like, Donald Trump ran as the law and order candidate. He's violating the Constitution on a near daily basis.
Of officers that we have, and I want to make it easier for those officers to do their job. And what that means is that we allow officers to focus on serious crimes, and for all of the focus on the head count, we should focus on the retention crisis. When I started running for mayor, 200 officers were leaving the department every month. Mm-hmm. Now it's 350. And a lot of them are leaving because there's simply no way they can do their job in what's being asked of them. And to your point, however, Andrew Cuomo is going to say a lot of things tomorrow night on the debate.
I bet they haven't even watched one of the 50-plus seasons of it either.
Yeah, name your... you love Law and Order? Name your favorite plot line. Name your top 5 favorite plot lines. And none of that SVU shit. None of that mainstream shit. I'm talking OG Law and Order.
Stage. And frankly, I wish it was more like NASCAR, so New Yorkers could see the billionaires that were sponsoring him right on his suit jacket. Because this is a man who had 10 years. And I know now that it's politically convenient, he watches Fox News as well. So I'll just speak to him directly. Andrew.
Did you really work on SVU this one? That's cool. That's cool as hell.
You had your chance to lead this state. You took that time to sell out working class New Yorkers to your billionaire donors. And instead of actually meeting the needs of people who couldn't afford to live in this city, you gave $959 million in tax breaks to Elon Musk. And now you want us to believe that we can't spend less money than that to make every bus fast and free in the same city.
All right.
God, I love the direct address to specific people. What a wonderful way to use this platform. Get fucked, Andrew Cuomo.
I'm going to squeeze in two very
Please.
quick ones here,
Absolutely.
if you can answer them quickly. Commissioner Tisch, you have suggested that you want her to stay. Have you asked her to stay? And has she said yes? Because I think that is one issue that would go a long way towards police retention.
I've said that I appreciate Commissioner Tisch's record of uprooting corruption in the upper echelons of the NYPD. Yeah. I've appreciated her presiding over drops in crime across the city, and I continue to
second the
actively
requirement that all politicians have the logos of their donors with scaling size relative to amounts on their clothes at all times.
Honestly, that would be dope as hell. Like, I'm sorry, like just the idea of like a bespoke suit with like every donor in like proportionate size to their donations, like written on it, that would actually be fire as hell. You know? I think that'd be very cool.
Consider her to be my police commissioner. I haven't made any personnel commitments.
Okay, so you don't want to ask her right now?
No. That's the kind of conversation I would actually have in person, in private, not a politics of PA.
Okay, it's an issue that a lot of people brought up with me when I told them I was going to be speaking with you. Last question, you want to have a World Cup czar. I know you're a huge soccer fan, Arsenal fan.
See, like they wouldn't ask this question if they were trying to sling mud on him as a candidate. This is a question because they understand he is going to be mayor. You know, they are ending it on a softball question because they understand he's going to be mayor and they want him to come back.
Donald,
you know?
Pepsi, Cola, Disney, Elon, Trump.
Thank you for the $5 dono, Nathan. God.
I have a lot to learn about soccer. I'm happy to admit that. And I look
happy to
forward
come
to
back and
learning
teach you
more.
about it.
That would be great. What is this World Cup czar going to do for New York City business?
The World Cup is the largest sporting event in the world. And it's as if no one has been thinking or talking about it here in New York City government. It's coming next summer to this city. We're going to have billions of people watching. The World Cup czar is going to ensure that this is a tournament that New Yorkers remember as well, not just those who visit us. That it's a tournament that will signify an increase, not only in tourism, but for small businesses and an exploration of this city. Because for too long, we have had these kinds of opportunities that we've just passed up on. I mean, we recently had the 400th anniversary of New York City. Mm-hmm. Most people have no idea.
Right, good point.
Because the city didn't do anything about it.
Well, you know, President Trump's going to make a huge deal out of the 250th anniversary of New York City. So maybe there's an example there. And he and his family, his son is a huge soccer fan. So would you welcome them to New York to enjoy the World Cup with you?
I would welcome them to come to New York City and also to talk about how we can actually lower the cost of living, because that has to be the focus. And frankly, that's a promise that's been broken. It's time to fix it. And that's what I'm running.
He's so fucking good at this. He's so
Guaranteed
fucking good
he
at
asked
it.
about cricket in a British program.
Oh, absolutely, Saket the Nurki. Thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. But also, like, he gets asked, like, oh, would you hang out with Donald Trump? And he's like, yeah, absolutely I would. And we could talk about how to lower costs in this city that is too damn expensive. Like, that's, like, he's so good at redirecting towards what he actually gives a damn about. Because he doesn't give a damn about watching soccer with Donald Trump. Like, that's a weird question to ask. But, like, he can even take that relatively innocuous jab and turn it into something productive for getting his point across. This is like excellent rhetorical skill on display. And like genuinely, I started this segment out by saying like this guy is effectively doing like a Neo from the Matrix martial arts. Like, wow, I know Kung Fu. And he's just like coming out of nowhere, absolutely decimating folks. It is 100% a thing of beauty to just watch him do this. All right. And with that, I believe we are done here. But damn, he's good. Damn, he's good. And I, for one, am excited to see that even conservative media is bending the knee to the coming age of Mamdani. You know, I think it's good. I think it's wonderful, and I think we're gonna do some
Can
great
you
things in
imagine
New York
Trump
City.
watching soccer with Zohran? He can barely pay attention to sports with cheerleaders.
Oh God, yeah. I don't think Donald Trump would go to watch a soccer game. I don't think he gives a damn about soccer. I already increased the size of Cuomo's yellow ribbon pin based on his support from Israel for Israel. That's pretty great, Forlorn. Thank you for sharing. Oh, all right, folks. If you've enjoyed the segment, remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and do the things that help the channel to grow. Share the video around. Do the things, you know. And I'll see you next time, folks.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop